I remember the night it happened like it was yesterday. I had just moved into a new apartment on the outskirts of town, eager to start a new chapter in my life. It was a quiet neighborhood, and my apartment complex was nestled among a cluster of trees, which gave it a cozy, almost rustic feel. That night, I had settled in for the evening, watching TV and enjoying a glass of wine when I heard a noise coming from outside. At first, I dismissed it as just the wind, but as the noise grew louder, I began to feel uneasy. I made my way to the window and peered out into the darkness. The moon was hidden behind a thick layer of clouds, casting everything in an eerie, almost ghostly light. It was then that I saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the tree line, staring directly at me. At first, I thought it might just be a trick of the light or my imagination, but as the figure began to move closer, I realized that it was very real. It was a man, dressed in tattered clothing and covered in dirt and grime. He had a wild look in his eyes, and as he approached my window, I could see that he was carrying a large, rusty knife. I was frozen with fear, unsure of what to do. I tried to call for help, but my phone was dead, and the only thing I could do was hide. I crawled under my bed, hoping that the man wouldn't find me. For what felt like hours, I lay there in the darkness, listening to the man's footsteps as he searched my apartment. I could hear him muttering to himself, and occasionally he would let out a sinister laugh that made my blood run cold. Eventually, the man left, and I was left alone in my apartment, shaking with fear. I never found out who he was or what he wanted, but to this day, I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, watching and waiting for his next victim. It was a warm summer night, and I had just finished working the late shift at the diner. I was walking home, enjoying the peacefulness of the quiet suburban streets, when I noticed a man walking towards me on the other side of the road. At first, I didn't think much of it, but as he got closer, I could tell that something was off. He was wearing a dark hoodie and had his face obscured by the shadows, making it difficult to see his features. Suddenly, the man started running towards me, his footsteps echoing loudly on the pavement. I panicked and ran in the opposite direction, but the man was faster and quickly caught up to me. He grabbed me by the arm and pulled me into a nearby alleyway, pressing a knife against my throat. I screamed for help, hoping that someone would hear me, but the man just laughed and told me to be quiet. I was sure that I was going to die, but just then, I heard the sound of police sirens in the distance. The man's grip loosened for just a second, and I managed to break free and run towards the sound of the sirens. When I finally reached the police officers, I was shaking and covered in sweat. I explained what had happened, and they quickly dispatched a unit to search for the suspect. Within minutes, they had found the man and taken him into custody. It turned out that he was a known criminal, wanted for a string of robberies and assaults in the area. The police officers praised me for my bravery and assured me that the man would be put away for a long time. As they escorted me back to my apartment, I felt grateful to be alive and relieved that the police had been there to save me. I loved taking walks in the park. It was a great way to clear my head after a long day at work. But today's walk would be one I'd never forget. As I walked down the winding paths, I noticed a man walking a few feet behind me. At first, I thought nothing of it. It was a public park, after all. But as I turned a corner and walked down a deserted path, I realized that the man was still following me. I picked up my pace, hoping to lose him in the crowds. But as I turned around, I saw him walking faster too. Panic set in as I realized that this man was following me home. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that I couldn't let him catch me, but my legs felt heavy and my lungs burned with each breath. Finally, I made it to my house and fumbled with my keys, trying to unlock the door as quickly as possible. I could hear his footsteps getting closer, and I knew that I was running out of time. As soon as I stepped inside, I called the police. I could hear the man pounding on the door, trying to force his way inside. When the police arrived, the man was long gone. But they assured me that they would do everything in their power to find him. Days turned into weeks, and I tried my best to put the incident behind me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. One night, I woke up to the sound of someone trying to force open my bedroom window. I panicked and called the police again, but by the time they arrived, the intruder was gone. I lived in constant fear after that. I installed security cameras and bought a new, heavy-duty lock for my door. But it was all for nothing. The stalking continued, and I was starting to lose my mind. I couldn't leave my house without feeling like someone was following me, and I couldn't sleep at night without feeling like someone was watching me. The police did everything they could, but they were never able to catch the stalker. It was like he was always one step ahead of us. One day, I came home to find a note on my doorstep. It was from the stalker. He told me that he was always watching, always waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. That was when I knew that I had to leave. I packed my things and moved to a new city, hoping that I could start over and forget about the horror that I had experienced. But even now, years later, I still find myself looking over my shoulder, wondering if he's still out there, waiting for me to let my guard down.